I'm Carrie.
I'm Toni, and we are
Two Cranky Creatives.
This podcast is brought to you by the Graphics Gang, our online community you can find at patreon.com/graphics gang. Paid members can also watch many of the unedited podcast video recordings. What are we cranky about today, Toni?
Today, Carrie, we are cranky about getting ghosted. First, it sucks, and I know both of us have endured this, so why don't you go ahead and share your story?
Yes, getting ghosted is something that I feel like every artist has run into at one point or another. Basically, if you're putting yourself out there into the world, pitching, and just putting your art out there, and you're trying to get either an art licensing deal or a freelance job, and you're talking to people over email, and maybe you get lucky and you start a dialogue with one of them. It is inevitable, and I don't want anyone to feel like it's just you. It is inevitable that at some point you may get ghosted. You probably will. I have been ghosted. I have an artist who I follow. She, Mabel Tan. I love her. I look up to her. I've been following her for years. And she said something years ago that really resonated with me, and I never forgot it. She is someone who's incredibly talented, very successful. I love her art, and I've always admired her. And Mabel said, I've gotten ghosted by art directors. And she said so many other valuable things in that Zoom, but that was the thing that stuck with me, not because it was negative, but because it was the first time I didn't feel alone. And I also thought, oh my gosh, if that can happen to her, then I don't feel so bad when it happens to me, because she is incredibly successful.
Yeah.
So I want to share a quick story about, getting ghosted. I have been ghosted multiple times, first of all, by, you name it, art directors, people with freelance work. It's happened more than once. But I did have an experience that was a kind of a shocking ghosting experience that was especially frustrating for me and made me especially cranky.
Yeah.
So I had been pitching agencies for over a year. I had been pitching my art to companies and I wasn't getting any traction. And, pitching takes a long time. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of follow-up emails. And I just kept thinking, if I could just get an agent, they could handle all this pitching for me. So I can focus on, I don't know, drawing, maybe creating
Right.
the fun part. Right. And so I had pitched a lot of agencies, and I finally had an agency get back to me, and they were really reputable, looked like a really awesome agency. They had a lot of really great artists. They were very big. They were international. Obviously, I had sought them out, so I knew who they were, and I was desperately looking to be represented by them. And I was very excited. So we did a little back and forth, and they said, yes, we would like to represent you. Thank you for reaching out. Here's our contract. So I never sign anything, especially contracts with my art, without running them by my attorney. And so I did, and my attorney was concerned by the contract. He felt like I was going to be giving up a lot of rights to my art. And there were some clauses in there that were also very vague and could be left open to interpretation, where the agency could, if they wanted to, take advantage of me, and I really wouldn't have any legal recourse. And I listened to what my attorney tells me. So he said, let me redline this and edit it, and then you can send it back. Now, I'm used to interactions with people, art directors, companies, things like that. It's a negotiation. A contract is a negotiation. It's not here's what we have and you say yes or no, and that's it, and it's done. There's usually going to be some wiggle room. You're going to make some changes. So I was very polite and professional and sent it back and said, there are a few things that I had my attorney look at. Here is the edited contract. Please let me know what you think and if this works for you. And really, he had just taken some things out, changed the wording on some things, and I think added maybe a paragraph. It wasn't even that much.
Right.
And so they wrote back to confirm that they received it and said, "We've received it. Thank you for sending it. We'll get back to you shortly."
Right.
I gave them a week and I patiently waited. And I thought, they have a legal team, I'm sure, that's reviewing this contract. And so a week goes by, I don't hear anything. And I think, okay, well, that's fine. That's normal. Another week goes by. It's been 2 weeks. And then I'm kind of getting a little nervous. So by the end of 2 weeks, I just wrote them back. And I said, I wanted to check in and make sure that you didn't have anything you had questions about or wanted more clarification on. And also at the same time, I had spoken to my attorney. He said, I'd be happy to speak with their legal department directly if you want, as your representative, which is great. And of course, I'd be paying him to do that, but it would be worth every penny to protect.
Right. Right.
So they didn't answer. 3 weeks goes by. I write back again. Just want to check in. I'm happy to sign it if we can agree on some of these, changes. Hello, hey guys, I'm ready to sign. Nothing. And then, so at that point, it was almost a month. And I was like thinking, this feels like I'm being ghosted and they're not responding. And one thing that I guess could have maybe wasn't great in this situation is I use a free email tracker called Streak. That's a Gmail plugin.
I do too.
I don't have the paid version. Yeah. And I knew they were reading my emails. So if they had not seen my emails and they were bouncing, I would have felt a little better. I know that's ridiculous, but I would have.
No,
but I
yeah.
knew they were reading my emails.
Right.
And I thought, why are they reading my emails and not answering me? What is the problem? This should be a negotiation. This shouldn't be we don't like your changes, so no, goodbye.
Right.
So I talked to my attorney again, and he said, let me reach out to them and let them know that I'm available for questions. So he did, and they ghosted him too.
Yeah.
And never heard another word. And then I got about 6 weeks after, maybe 7 or 8 weeks later, I think it was 6 weeks, I wrote them back one more time and said, I'm really disappointed. I really wanted to work with you. I have a lot of respect for your agency. I felt like whatever, conflicts there were could have hopefully been worked out. And I'm very flexible. And so is my attorney, and we're willing to work with you. I'd really like to be represented by you. Although at that point, I was kind of saying that under my breath. At the same time, I was grumble, 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 because I was also annoyed with them because that's rude. And I also kind of looked at it as, if they're ghosting me right now, how are they going to be an agency? Because I'm supposed to have a really open dialogue that's back and forth, and I don't have to wait weeks for their response.
Right.
So they never responded. And, in the end, I felt like I had dodged a bullet, actually, because if that contract is set in stone, I would never have benefited from it. And they could have actually taken my art and owned the rights to a lot of my art forever. So I'm really glad I didn't sign it. Yeah. But it really was insulting to be ghosted. It wasn't like a typical experience where you get ghosted, you pitch somebody that, they answer you and then they don't respond. Because, the thing about being ghosted is, and it's taken me years to realize this, it's not about you. They're not ghosting you because you aren't any good. They responded. So they obviously like your art and they obviously want to work with you, but people get busy. They change jobs. Sometimes they're not getting your emails, which is why I use Streak, which is free. Right. But, so the thing is, this was especially insulting because they had put together a contract just for me. But the way I handled it was first of all, I reminded myself that it wasn't about me. It was about them. And it was about them having completely unreasonable terms. And, I would have been real cranky if I'd signed that. So I'm really glad. And maybe if I'd been represented by them, because they seem kind of flaky and they seem kind of not willing to hold up their end of the bargain of simple communication. So in the end, I felt like it was a good thing that they ghosted me. Yeah. But that was probably the toughest ghosting experience I had. And I wanted to share that story so that everyone listening knows that it can happen to anybody on any level. And remember that it's not about you. And, follow up, be polite, be professional. But if someone is ghosting you, they're either too busy to work with you, so you don't want to work with them, or they maybe change jobs, or maybe you don't want to work with somebody who does that, because to me, that shows a lack of professional integrity. I don't typically ghost people.
Right. And, and for purposes of the conversation, I think for me, when I think of being ghosted, I think that there has been initial contact, right? So we're not talking about you're cold pitching, you're using Streak and they've opened the email, but they never respond to you. Like, we're not talking about that. That's just part of the deal, right?
Yes.
Everybody's got a slush pile. Everybody's got a million, you're not going to get a response for every pitch you send. We're talking about there has been contact. All right. There's been discussion. There's been something that makes you believe a relationship is going to be had, and then it goes away. And yeah, so I'll share my ghosting story. It's kind of similar. It involves contracts. So for me, as I've made clear, my practice is primarily freelance. And so the difference is I know this person. I know them personally. I know them professionally. Okay.
Uh-oh.
We have mutual friends. In fact, that's how we met.
Well, it's not me.
No, it's definitely not Carrie. So I'm at a birthday party for a friend of mine, and this individual is there. They have a boutique in town. And my friend, because I am a greeting card designer, I make greeting cards for all of my friends. Everybody gets a unique illustration from me for their birthday. I sometimes turn around and sell them after the fact, but my friends get them first.
That's awesome. So I'm expecting one then, right? No.
We'll make that work here. So I had made this greeting card for my friend for her birthday, and this individual sees it. She's looking at it. And then, so I go over to her, I knew she had a boutique, but I wasn't really thinking anything about it at the time. And so we get to talking, and she's like, I'd love to see your line. I'm like, okay. So I sent her this catalog, and, I didn't have her email address. We were connected on Facebook. So we're doing all of this through Facebook Messenger. And then but she's like, finally, she's like, hey, here's my email address. Like, part of me now thinks it's because you can see if somebody's read your stuff on Facebook Messenger.
Yep.
But so she gives me her email address.
Streak.
It's like Streak. So she gives me the email address, and I start, and so I'm starting to do this in email. So then fast forward, I'm getting no response. Her business has an autoresponder though. So every time an email, but you can't count on autoresponders. They don't mean the email's been read, but I know it hit her server because I got the auto reply saying, we check email at this point in time, expect blah, blah, blah response. Okay, no problem. So finally I'm like, okay, not answering, changed her mind. It's all good. There's no skin off. Nothing has been exchanged. No promises made, whatever. So I send her this final email that says, looks like you've changed your mind. No worries. I'll put you on my mailing list for portfolio updates. Right. And then I get a Facebook message from her saying, you must not be getting my emails because I have twice replied to you saying, I want us to meet. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not getting your emails. Glad we're connected this other way. So we set a meeting. I go into the boutique because I'm thinking I'm going in to talk about wholesaling, right? Like having my cards in this boutique, which the boutique is no longer around anymore. She's closed it, just FYI. And the reason I was really gung ho about this is she'd been profiled in Martha Stewart. Like
Ooh.
She was getting national recognition, right? One of her other artists is now working for Mahogany,
Wow.
Hallmark, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm like, great opportunity. Cool. No big deal. So we sit down, we talk. And she's saying, you know what? I don't have anybody because like I'm also a pattern designer at this point. She's like, I don't have anybody who can do patterns. I don't have anybody who can do this. Da, 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 da. And the whole deal is she wanted me to be one of her commissioned artists. And so she had lots of relationships with businesses here in town, and they would come to her for custom corporate art. And I was like, sure, no problem. Happy to do it. No big deal. Send me the contract, right? Now, am I a lawyer? No. Do I take advantage of legal services as much as possible? Yes. I've had a course in business law, mostly contract law, because I got an MBA. So I'm not ignorant of contracts, but I don't pretend to be a lawyer. In this particular contract, I could tell it had not been written by a lawyer that she sent me. So I didn't worry too hard about having a lawyer review it because it was very plain English language.
Yeah.
But there was a clause in it that I was like, there were two things. One, I did make sure it was a short-term contract. It was not like indefinite. It was like set period of time.
Good.
And, but there was the way it was written, like, so the whole deal was if If you got a gig through her, she got a commission. Perfectly fine. No problem, right? But the way it was written is she got a commission regardless of how the gig was sourced, right? So if I got my own, if a client approaches me offline, not through the boutique, because like she was just a connector, right?
Yeah.
She wasn't your agent. She was a lot like Illustrators for Hire, right?
Yeah.
She's
kind of a liaison, sort of.
A liaison, right?
Yeah.
And so she was going to get a cut from, and perfectly fine. No worries about that. I honestly have no problem with that whatsoever.
It's great for exposure. Yeah.
Yeah. But the way it was written, she got a cut of all of my work. Now, do I believe that was malicious intent on? No, honestly, it was clear that contract was not written by a lawyer.
Yeah.
So I just think it was somebody not thinking. Because I'll be honest, I've been in book anthologies. I've done lots of freelance. I have had so many contracts that I have received that are clearly written by like Honeybook or some generic service. Mm-hmm. And that you just modify to say
LegalZoom,
mm-hmm, right? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, you're not thinking about how vague this is. And I'll push back, right? And be like, I'm not signing this until this is changed.
Yeah.
So I did the same thing. I'm like, look, hey, I have no issue with your model. I think that's completely fine. But this language, I will not accept. It's got to be very specific that you only get a cut of anything sourced through you.
Right.
Right.
No I feel problem. Like that's a no-brainer. That's completely reasonable.
No problem. Not at all. She agrees. I get the change. I had a couple other minor things that I want to change. Get it back. I sign it. We're good to go.
Great.
Right? So that day that I sent it, hey, here's this, because she also asked for my rate book and a couple other things, right? Okay. I said, do you have, simple email, do you have everything you need? Nothing. No response. 2 weeks later, I'm like, hey, checking it again, because I don't see myself on your website as one of your artists. Do you have everything you need? Nothing. Now, I have her phone number in theory at this point, because she gave it to me at one point because we were having so many issues connecting that first time around.
Which is weird, by the way.
Yeah.
That's weird. I mean, I don't think it was maybe intentional, but emails should be, if you look in your spam and
right,
you know what I mean? Like, where is that email? That's just weird. I hate when people do that, because sometimes I think people use it as an excuse. But anyway.
I do too. Because like I checked everything and I'm like, well, I'm getting email from everybody else, just not from you. So that's a little strange. But so I call the number she gave me. Mm-hmm. It goes to some obviously Southern man. And I'm like, and the area code is like North Carolina or something like that. So I messaged her on Facebook at this point. And I'm like, hey, I'm trying to reach you. I'm trying to make sure you have everything you need from me for this agreement that I have now contractually bound myself to. And that phone number you gave me is going to some man in North Carolina. I'm like, so, hey, to this day, Carrie, and this was a year ago now, to this day, I have not heard back from this person.
No.
And the only reason I didn't care was because I did a limited term contract and it expired.
Is it expired already?
It's expired. And then 2-3 days ago, I was driving by where the boutique is located, because this is just like downtown. Like the boutique used to be less than a mile from where I live. And it's gone. It's a bookstore now. So I was just
you kind of laugh to yourself?
I was just like, okay. Well, but I did see that she has a new design service that she's offering. And I'm just like, you know what? We have a mutual circle. And this is, for me, it was kind of a lesson learned of like, don't do things with people that you might know in person.
You mean don't shit where you eat?
Yeah, exactly. Because now I'm like, I will run into her at some point. And I'm just like, I've made the decision. I'm not going to address it. I'm just not going to address it.
It's not going to do any good. Yeah.
You're like, what is the point? But I don't understand. And I don't know, Carrie, if it's our age. Have you always been on the East Coast?
Yes.
Okay.
But I grew up overseas, but I mean,
I remember.
I'm 50, so I don't know. I might be a generational thing.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with email either. I mean, it didn't exist until I was in my 20s.
Yeah, me too. Me too. In fact, I was just having this conversation the other day with the boss of my 9 to 5. And I was like, yeah, because we were talking about something about generational generational things in the workplace. I was like, my first job was with an IBM Selectric.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That's
I
awesome.
remember the first computer at a job I ever got. I was a legal secretary, and I had to learn how to do Windows for DOS.
Oh, wow. Fun.
Yeah. I'm like, there wasn't even mice back then. Okay.
Yeah. That's crazy. Well, I think it is possibly a generational thing. Or for me though, I think it's not just generational, but so the problem with email is great. It's a really great way to not have to go somewhere in person
Hmm.
and get yourself out there. Obviously, I'm not, the internet is wonderful.
Right.
Here we are on the internet. But the problem with email is it's really easy to ignore someone, unless
Yes.
even with Facebook Messenger, you can see when someone's on there. You can
Hmm.
see when they're typing.
Hmm.
You can see whether they've read your message. Now, I'm not recommending Facebook Messenger. I'm not a huge fan, but especially not for business interaction.
Right.
But the problem with email is you can really easily just shove an email off, archive, delete it, ignore.
Yeah.
And people don't think twice about it.
Right.
A lot of people don't. Now, I feel guilty if I don't reply to someone. I have gotten messages, sometimes from ex students that I take a little while to respond to, but I at least write back and say, well, like I've had a few students that messaged me and said, I really want some advice on something. And I'm thinking, well, I do coaching and
Hmm.
and I charge for it. It's through Skillshare, but you're more than welcome to schedule a coaching session with me. Give me your specifics of what you need help with, and then we can work together. But
Right.
I never, and then if they don't want to pay me for coaching, I understand. It's not free, but I don't ghost them. I'll give them an option.
Right.
I feel guilty. Like if I archive an email or snooze it and I haven't responded, I can hear in the back of my head a little voice while I'm taking a shower that night saying, don't forget about that email.
Right.
Because I feel like a terrible person if I ignore someone because someone put themselves out there. Now, with cold pitches and pitching, especially when you're pitching companies, do not expect to not get ghosted. It's rare that
Right.
you don't get ghosted or not ghosted, but just
Like it's just a
ignored.
no response. It's just a
Yeah,
non-response.
because these companies get a lot of pitches from a lot of people. But the thing that makes me so cranky about being ghosted is I'm emotional and I get excited really easily and I get my hopes up when there's a yes or a potential yes with a
Right.
client, with an agency, with a art director for licensing. And then when they ghost me after the fact, it just feels like a betrayal.
Right.
And it's really hard not to take it personally. I've learned not to because I know it's not about me, but
Hmm.
it is hard not to, and it does make me cranky. I just have to
Yeah.
remind myself that it's not me, it's them.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I definitely think it's not personal. I think there's some generational differences as well. Especially like Carrie, you and I were both in our 50s. I'm only a year older than you, I think. And we grew up in a face-to-face world. We grew up in a very like if phone calls and face-to-face, that's all you got, or like a
Right.
handwritten letter, right?
Right.
And so because of that, I think there's a certain ethos for how we conduct ourselves in that regard because back in the day if you stopped answering the phone someone's going to show up at your house, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying, like there wasn't this idea that you could just be like you could just suddenly turn off and not be able to be connected. And now we have two more generations that are in the workforce right now, millennials and Gen Z, who are have different layers of technological sophistication from, toddlerhood,
Yeah.
right? And this idea that there's this invisible thing called the internet between you,
Mhm.
right? And so that I think the urgency of connection is different, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I mean, I have like I just had a client the other day, and my standing rule and also the rules of etiquette, like business etiquette, are lost. Like I taught for 2 years at the local university, and I taught business and technical writing. And we had a whole module, so about 2 or 3 weeks, where it was about writing for work. So it
Mhm.
was like resumes and cover letters. And I taught it straight the way they wanted me to teach it the first semester. And then I said, I'm redesigning this curriculum. I'm like, these kids, they don't know how to write email. They don't know what business etiquette is. They don't know about the, what it looks like they don't even know that you don't say, hey, right?
Yeah.
Like I had to teach them how to like address an email,
Mm-hmm.
and like, hey, like standard is you either say a reply needs to be made within 48 hours, 48 business hours, or you're sending something that says, I have received your email and I am not in a position where I can give you a thoughtful reply right now. So I will be replying to you as soon as I am able, but you do not ghost. Right. I had to teach 18 and 19-year-olds this.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's not the world we're raising them in. But in the business world, and I do think it's changing because you're starting to see more Slack and stuff like that coming into play. But email is still the primary communication module professionally. Yeah. Right. Like we're not going on Slack to find art directors. We're having to send them emails.
Right.
But a lot of these art directors, they're younger. We're getting older. They're going to keep getting younger. Right.
Thanks.
Well, it's just the nature.
I know.
So how everybody interacts with technology is different. But for me, my ethos is, and I tell all of my clients this, you will get some form of response from me within 2 business days.
Yeah.
Some form of response, right? It's either going to be the answer to your question, or it's going to be me letting you know some tentative time frame where I believe I can answer your question, right? And it just happened recently, like she jumped the gun a little bit, but one of my clients emailed me and I hadn't reached that 48 hours yet. And I was putting it off because I needed time to think. And she messaged me and it's like, I really need you. And I'm like, okay, like I need to be able to give you a thoughtful reply to this. So I will get back to you this week, but it will not be today. Right. Cause this happened on a Saturday because I was like, this chick is not going to leave me alone. Okay. So like, let me, but I don't think that is, and then I think the converse of that is true. There's this expectation of instantaneous response because of the era of instant messaging.
Yeah.
Right. And this is something I have to tell my husband a lot too. Like, so I have worked at every level of corporate America. I have been a receptionist and I've been a vice president. So I've been in the C-suite and I have been a receptionist. Okay. And so I have seen it all. And like so my husband does property tax consultation, right? So he's dealing with like owners of commercial businesses and property, big companies and things like that. And he'll be like, I sent the email. I haven't heard back from you yet. And my first question is, and how long ago did you send the email? He'll be like, I sent it this morning. I'm like, dude, he's
hasn't
the CEO.
Even been a day. Yeah.
But I tell him, give him a week. I'm like, because when I was a vice president, I could not, my day was filled with meetings. Sometimes I had to travel. I don't have time to address my email instantaneously. So when I was a vice president, I had an autoresponder that said, I will respond within 5 business days. Right. Because I'm like, I can't even guarantee you 48 hours. I have so much going on, And so like, I have to tell my husband the same thing. You have to moderate your expectations. Yeah. And the one time this happened where he was like, oh my God, because he really wanted to land this client. And I'm like, you messaged him this morning. You don't know where he could be on vacation. So he doesn't hear from him for a week. And then I said, so now it's time to follow up. You ping back in. Still didn't hear from him. I said, dude, chill. And then when the guy got back to my husband, he's like, yeah, I've been traveling for the last 2 weeks, Yeah. And I'm like, you have no idea what is going on in somebody's life. Yeah. Now that said, I believe ghosting is rude on all occasions because as I like defined for me beforehand, I'm talking about there has been some communication with some indication there's a promise of relationship. Right. Yeah. So, and I have had places I've pitched come back to me and say, thank you, not right now. Great. Yeah. Perfect. No problem. I don't even have to think about you anymore. I'll still pitch you at some point in the future, but this exchange has now been resolved. Yeah.
But I have to add, I always think when companies do that for me, I've gotten not right now, we're full, or you're not the right fit, your style. I get that a lot because my style is kind of weird and not everybody wants my style, but I always thank them for responding because I want to I want them to know that I appreciate them taking the time to just write, and sometimes it's hard for people to say no.
Right.
They don't know what to say. They don't want to say, oh, well, we don't like your art. And they may
Right.
not like my art, and that's okay. I'm not going to take it personally, but they don't
Right.
really want to say that. So it's easier to just say nothing for them.
Right.
But when they
again,
do say no, or you're not the right fit, I always thank them, because that is, I appreciate that. And
I
not
do too.
everyone does it at all.
Exactly. And you know what? And who knows? Art directors change over too. Your fit might become right at some point, So no, I absolutely agree. I'm always polite. I always thank. And I did share with you offline the one experience I had with someone that was really hostile, who I blocked, and I'm like, I didn't owe you nice, and I'm not going to give you nice, but I blocked you, and I'm not like trashing you all over town. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think that it is just so much more disconnected, and I do believe that people have a hard time being direct and honest, and I do believe part of that is because we've grown up in the or the world has become a lot more sugar coated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember when my daughter was in school and they were giving out participation trophies.
Yeah.
And like we pulled her aside and had like a conversation like, okay, look, we don't do that participation trophy thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's cool you had fun and I'm glad you got a little something out of it. But like understand that in a competition, because these were for competitions, in a competition, there's a winner. And then there's everybody else. I didn't say losers, because it's not about winners and losers. There's someone who actually achieved the highest level of skill, ability, or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. And then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
But just showing up isn't giving your best effort. And I have an expectation that you're going to give your best effort. And so like, cause I didn't grow up with participation trophies. I don't agree with that. And like, I remember, just like having these experiences when I was at the director level in corporate America, and I'm having to hire. And I like I'm seeing these they were kids to me, but like they're in their 20s, they're fresh out of college, and like they're so in their feelings in an interview. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, do you realize this is professional? Like this is work. You know what I'm saying? Like your feelings about this aren't relative. There's not relevant. I can't even get the word out. Relevant.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, it's just like this ethos that's so different. And I'm okay with, you don't like me. It's fine. I'm okay with, you don't like, my ego is not so invested in my work.
No, you have to let that go. I mean, as an artist, you cannot get your feelings hurt every time someone says they don't like your art, because it's going to happen. And it's not about you. It's not you. It's your art. It's something you made. Big deal.
Exactly. And I think that, again, to me, if you're cold pitching, you're going to get a non-response. I don't even call that being ghosted. You're just not going to get responses to everything you send. People are busy. They've got shit going on. It's fine. It's not a problem. But I do believe that the moment you initiate contact and the moment you create any form of relationship, and I'm not using that like in its strictest definition, we have communicated, we have discussed the possibility of working together, that a relationship has been made. That deserves, the circumstances have changed. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it takes an inner, I can't think of the word. Fortitude is a little bit stronger than what I'm going for. But like, we're not training people coming up in how to handle uncomfortable conversations. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And like, that's one of the things I worked on with my students too. Like what happens when, even negotiating your salary, like my stepdaughter and I were just going through it because she's, she was getting a promotion at her job, and they made her an offer that was a little lower than what she wanted. And I'm like coaching her on how like to write the email, like you're going to negotiate this, like we're, but also then saying to her now, like once we got it all crafted and ready for her to make the request, I told her, I said, now your job now is to figure out what if they say no, what's your next step? Are you going to take the job or not? Yeah. But we don't do that anymore. And so, and we've got all of these generations having to work together. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I think that makes it hard, you know?
Yeah, and people have different ways they were brought up of what constitutes rude,
Yeah.
what constitutes polite, even in their personal lives.
Mhm.
So we're all trying to muddle our way through and then communicate on some common ground when it
Mhm.
comes to something as important as your income
Right.
and your art and where your art is going to go. But yeah, I mean, I feel like more companies who initiate contact should at least just be willing to write back and say, not right now, it's
Mhm.
not the right fit. And it
Mhm.
does happen sometimes, but more often than not, I have gotten ghosted if I send my password to my catalog. I've had a lot of companies that write back and say, we would love to see more of your work. This is after they've seen my portfolio and my, which is pretty small. It's just a sample, and my website, which is even smaller sample. But then they want to see my full catalog. And I send them the link, which is, they're getting special treatment by getting that link. I don't give that link to everybody. I mean, that
Mhm.
password. And then they don't respond. And,
Right.
I don't know if they're not responding because my art isn't the right fit, and I'm not going to say because they don't like it, because that's a matter of opinion, but if it's not the right fit for their company, or if they don't have anything in that theme, or they want specific themes that I just don't have. And the problem with getting ghosted in like that scenario, for instance, is I pitch someone, they say, we're interested, give us your password. I give them the password, they don't respond. The thing is, they may be ghosting me and not responding to after seeing my catalog because they want illustrations of sardines, and I don't have any in my catalog. But I really want to work with this person, obviously, which is why I pitched them. You know what? I would draw you some sardines. If you
Right.
said, we would love sardines swimming in an ocean on the moon, wearing
Right.
party hats with pink eyes, I'd be happy to draw that for some of these companies because I really want to work with them.
Right.
But they don't even give me the opportunity. And for whatever reason, they're afraid to say, hey, we want sardines. You don't have any sardines. Will you draw some? Or maybe it's too much effort for them to think about asking me for something specific like that.
Mhm.
So it's easier for them to just ignore my email. But
Right.
they've missed an opportunity and I've missed an opportunity, which is really frustrating
Yeah.
because, being ghosted, and that's what drives me nuts. If they said, look, we don't like the style of art that you do, and it doesn't fit with anything we have now or plan on doing, that if I knew that, I could close the door on it and I would thank them, even
Mhm.
if unless they were really, we hate your art, which no one has
Right.
said and would ever say, but I would thank them for being honest. I would thank them for responding.
Right.
And then I would close the door. I would not delete them. I might pitch them again in a year, especially
Mhm.
if maybe I've tried some new mediums, like, maybe I wasn't doing watercolor, but a year later I am, and they wanted watercolor. I might try again. But they don't even want to make the effort to say that kind of thing. And so it's lost opportunity for them too.
Right.
So maybe in the back of my mind, I want to have this podcast out there so that people who are in decision-making roles at companies, art buyers, art directors, realize by ghosting someone who you were initially interested in working with, you're also hurting yourself because
Yeah.
you don't know what that person has that they haven't shown you or would be willing to create or can do that you're not
Right.
aware of.
Yeah. It's funny because I take a little bit of a different take on it with now, granted, I haven't run into getting ghosted too much in the licensing world. The replies I've gotten have led to actual licensing, but I'm also like, I've said this before, I'm not pitching on a regular basis, but in my freelance, right? And the thing that makes me extremely cranky in my practice is these people reached out to me.
Yeah.
I don't market myself as a freelance artist. I don't know if I've ever said that. I don't. I never have. From the beginning of time when the dinosaurs roamed and I hand coded websites, it's been word of mouth,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't market myself. It's a referral. Someone has told you about me and you reached out to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what's even more puzzling about why someone would ghost you.
Right? Why? Like, I didn't come to you. I didn't ask for you. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's always been a signal of you're not somebody I want to work with. Okay, you did me a favor. And especially like with representation, and like I'm in a situation right now with my publisher. So my romance novels are published, or were, well, they still are. They're published. The publisher's in the UK. Okay, and I was with a company called Accent Press in the United Kingdom, and they sold my rights, which they can do, to another publisher also in the UK. And I found out about this through some random form email. Okay. Like I didn't even get a personalized note from the publisher about this. And so I have spent 3 years, Carrie, 3 years trying to get this new publisher to fucking talk to me.
Oh my God. 3 years?
3 years.
I can't even imagine how many different ways you've tried contacting them. Like your subject line is like, look, a purple hippopotamus. Oh, now that I have your attention.
Well, and then plus in the middle of all of that, I got married and changed, and my name changed. Right. So, and I should say not in the middle of this 3-year cycle. I've been married for 10 years, but from my original contracts are all in my maiden name. And so now I'm trying to communicate with them and I have a different name. So, but finally I got to the point where I was like, I wrote this email and I was like, and my next step will be securing legal representation.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm like, you are contractually bound.
Yeah.
To give me this information. Yeah. They owe me money. Like,
oh no.
They owe me money. Right. Because like I periodically log into Amazon UK's Author Central. I'm like, okay, my books are still selling.
So that's like KDP.
Yeah, it's the
Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing.
It's not KDP. KDP is where you actually publish the books. It's the author sales tracking website.
Oh, okay. Right.
It's called Author Central. And so I have a login for Amazon UK, and then I also have rights here in the United States. So I have a publisher here in the United States for these books, and I still haven't gotten accounting from them. I'm like I know.
It is time to get an attorney.
Yeah,
not that they won't ghost the attorney, but
but it's just like
why?
Exactly.
What is the point of that? I mean, the company still exists. It's not like you're sending emails to an email that doesn't exist. They're not bouncing.
Right.
Why? What?
I don't,
the reason for that.
This week, I finally got them to give me an accounting of my sales in the UK.
Yay.
And to get the form filled out so they can pay me what they owe me.
Oh,
and
what a relief.
I felt like, did you ever watch the Boondocks when it was out?
A little. I've seen a little bit here and there.
Okay, so there's this whole episode about Riley is the little brother of the main character, Huey. And so the whole thing was about Santa, and Riley was chasing Santa around going, you're going to pay what you owe, because like he had this expectation of what he was supposed to get for Christmas. So he would like chase like the mall Santas around. And so like, the whole thing is like, you're going to pay me what you owe me. Like, I know it's not a lot. You're not marketing my books. And we can have a whole episode about what to look out for if you get a book contract. They're not marketing we should. Because I learned lots of things. They're not marketing my books anymore. I get that. Because why? Because I'm not writing any more books for them. So they feel no compulsion to market my books. It's fine. They're still making sales. It's great. I don't care if this particular month all you're buying me is a latte. I want my fucking latte.
Yeah.
Okay? Give me my money.
The principle, and they're contractually back. That to me is unbelievable.
And it's like I could not get, and I even gone so far as to call, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm paying overseas rates because I don't have an international plan. Why? I don't have friends over in the UK. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, so give me, like, just freaking talk to me. I didn't ask you for anything other than an accounting. Y'all bought my books from my original publisher. You bought my contracts. Tell me what I am getting. That's it.
Yeah.
It took me 3 years to get an answer.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That must have been,
and it wasn't a traditional ghosting in the sense of, because I'd get like this email like, oh, sure, we'll look into it.
Well, I mean, they did respond, but then they just used that as a way to stall
6 months would go in between.
Wow.
And it's like, and then finally I got to the point where I'm emailing them every week on Monday. Where is it?
Yeah.
Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? My next step is certified letter. After that, I'm going to hire a lawyer in the UK.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to, that'll be fun.
Right.
Real easy. Well, that makes me think too, because, I wrote a book. I ended up self-publishing my book because it was so hard, and I had such a struggle trying to get it picked up. I did have an agent briefly, but my agent that I had for a very short period of time, really would not. She kind of would ghost me for months at a time. At first she was, oh, I'm sharing it with this publisher and that publisher because I was trying to get it traditionally published. And then I wouldn't hear from her, and she would ghost me for 3 months, and I would have to send her 3, 4, 5 emails. Hey, hello, just checking in. How are things going? Do you need anything from me? Do you have any questions? And when that happened, and then near the end of my relationship with this agent, she came to me and said, I'm no longer going to be an agent. I'm retiring. I'm going to be focusing on some other things in my life. I should have seen her ghosting, which was kind of like serial ghosting, I guess. Intermittent serial ghosting. Is that like a syndrome?
I think so.
But I should have seen that as an indicator, just like a lot of ghosting, of maybe I don't want to work with this person. Maybe this person really isn't very willing to work with me.
Right.
And maybe this person is a little flaky.
Yeah.
You know what I am not is flaky.
Right.
I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. And if I promise I'll do something, I do it. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Just me, or if that's a generational thing, it doesn't matter what it is. But that is what bothers me about being ghosted, because I feel like if I won't ghost you and I mean what I say and say what I mean and honor my promises, why doesn't everyone else? That's a frustrating, crank thing that makes me cranky, the injustice of it all. But I have to remember and accept that not everybody is me. Not everybody is like me. And also, I wanted to add one more thing. My one thing that I've heard from my mom for years, which is really, I know she didn't coin this phrase, but she uses it all the time. It's a bumper sticker on her car, and it is great. Don't believe everything you think. And also, don't believe everything you feel. When someone ghosts you, if you feel like terrible, you feel rejected, you feel betrayed, you feel, or you think they don't like my art isn't any good, I'm not any good, I should quit, I'm a failure, I'm never going to make it. All those things in your head, which, believe me, I hear as somebody who, is an artist, and it can be a struggle. I have to remind myself that that's not reality. Just because I think that, just because I feel that, just because being ghosted made me feel that way, doesn't mean that's actually what's happening. And once I let go of that, it feels a lot more tolerable, and I can just I can let it go, and I can move on to the next thing. And the other thing is, I don't write off people who ghost me and get mad and ever send them, not that I would, but like a nasty email or other than the one I wrote it wasn't nasty, but I said, I'm really disappointed. But you never know. Sometimes people may ghost you, and then all of a sudden they didn't completely ghost you, because 3 months later, it turns out they were on maternity leave. Right. And no one was checking their email inbox. So don't ever write them off. Don't ever burn any bridges, because you never know why someone's ghosting you. And don't try to figure it out, because you can't get in other people's heads.
I honestly think that's a great place to end this episode.
Nice.
What do you think? I think that's a wrap.
I agree.
If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, we'd love it if you could rate and review us. Your support helps more people discover the show, and it keeps us going strong. Thanks for tuning in. It means a lot. I'm Toni.
And I'm Carrie. It's okay to be cranky.
In the meantime, keep creating.